Do you guys have another one?
I think I have
videos?
another video.
Oh, sweet.
Hi Marcus, hi Andrew. I was wondering, what do you think are some of the biggest dangers that technological advancement and progress might entail, and what solutions would you implement to prevent them from happening?
Wow.
I actually have a really
big
niche
question.
one here that you and I were talking about pretty recently.
Okay.
And that's with, and I don't think this is exactly what he's going at, but right now, technology in electric cars is pushing us to these like 0 to 60 times that are just like unheard of, especially, and we've talked about it before, the Model S is a just like regular everyday car and it's going 1.9 now with Plaid. At what point is this getting to a dangerous aspect of potentially needing like a specialty license to drive a full-size sedan? Like I said, this is very different, I think, from the question, but like I think that's a
valid
reasonable
question, yeah.
like worry. Yeah. Like at what point you see all those videos of like people crashing their Mustangs because they have way too much horsepower, and maybe that's mostly because it's rear-wheel drive, where most EVs now are four-wheel, but or all-wheel, whatever you want to call it. But those are enthusiasts also in Mustangs.
I have some potentially controversial thoughts about these things.
What's your most controversial thought that might get you canceled, Marcus?
Yeah. Okay. So speed limits and like the way our infrastructure, and not just the US, but a lot of countries, like safety wise, the way the rules are built are pretty old. So this like, speed limit 50, speed limit 60 thing is designed because it was literally dangerous to drive your car faster than that. There were no safety measures, there were no airbags, there were no things like if you crash at 50 miles an hour, that's a major problem. But I guess today the level of what's like safe by most people is higher than it was before, at least. So, you see like people crashing a Mustang because it has way too much horsepower, but that's just because they're a bad driver. Like if you crash a new car in 2020, you are a much worse driver. And it's going to be it's much safer in today's cars than it ever has been. There's a recent Doug DeMuro video about this, actually. I guess all of that is to say, yeah, you shouldn't drive your car crazy. You shouldn't drive your car to the limits. That's what the tracks and the recreational spaces are for. But you've lately had the ability to do unsafe speed things for a long time. There are lots and lots of cars out there that can go way faster than anyone's ever supposed to go on the road. And we're just not supposed to do that on the road.
I would argue there that the power is becoming, the initial power that's potentially uncontrollable is becoming way more accessible to people who aren't buying. Right now, it's not accessible to get a car that goes that fast unless you are specifically seeking out a performance car.
I would
where
say
if we're looking at Model 3,
yeah, I was gonna
you're
say.
going 3 seconds 0 to 60. Like you're starting to get, and we know Tesla, they're going to chip that down farther and farther. You're getting to uncontrollable speeds. Not uncontrollable,
I would
but
argue
way more
it's-
dangerous speeds for people who are bad drivers, which will never be eliminated.
I would argue it's not the speed. The 0
the
to 60
acceleration, yeah.
It's the acceleration, but if you floor it in a Model S in a straight line, it is way faster and way more safe than if you floor it in a straight line in a 720S. I've floored it in a straight line in a 720S, and
but that
are
doesn't
wiggling.
take into consideration variables on the road and like road.
No, it does. Like
it's still unsafe for people who aren't used to controlling power like that.
Yeah, both are unsafe.
And you're
but-
talking about bad drivers here, which will never stop. I mean, we have
think
people
that's what's-
crashing cars all the time now. You're
Yeah.
taking those people and giving them an ungodly amount of power, which
Yeah.
feels very dangerous.
It's true that the price to performance has come down constantly over the years.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've had dangerous levels of performance for many years.
Yeah, it's just more
basically.
accessible now to more bad drivers.
More so than before.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had Mustangs for years.
Yeah, but I feel like you're generally that's something you're seeking out for because you want a performance car.
A
Model
Model S is
3
$150,000.
Yeah, I know, but
it's probably the same
but
thing.
a Model 3 is still going 3.5, and like that's going to chip down. What happens when a Model 3 is going 2?
Is it less safe because it's going 2?
Yeah,
Is the Mustang more safe because it's slower?
well, that's different because of the rear-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive.
Well, that's
But
what I'm saying. It's like them going faster isn't necessarily less safe. I think it's about other things. That's why the Mustang's
But
reputation
there's
is not
still an
great.
acceleration curve when you're on gravel or loose road or something like that. That no matter what,
There are ways to make the
unsafe,
speed.
and there's other variables on the road like other drivers, animals crossing the road, pedestrians. All of that is very unsafe. Maybe not to the person in the car, but maybe to the person walking across the road.
Definitely.
That now you're going 2 seconds 0 to 60 across that intersection rather than 7 seconds across that.
Yes.
I just think it's something to be wary of, and I would still argue it's getting less safe.
I would
in
say a
terms of speed.
minor counterpoint is like if you are a good driver and you are aware that 0 to 60 also helps you avoid accidents.
Yeah,
It's true.
I don't
Which
think
I
there's
have
not
done before.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
not pros.
I've had
to
someone
it.
that has almost hit me, and I've just been able to just like.
I think
set
there's a
out of the
ton
way.
of pros to it. I think merging on highways is going to get way easier and safer because of that. But I still think there drives the factor of there are a lot of people I would never in the world want.
So to his question, is there a solution
is
to any of this?
I don't know.
all driverless cars all the time.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we get regulations on some of these things.
On max speeds
Legal regulations, not on max speed.
or on fastest acceleration?
I don't know where it would happen.
I have
I
two
don't
thoughts
know,
on
to
this.
be honest.
Number one, this is just a fun fact, is Plaid Model S is now actually too fast to go flat out at a recreational drag strip because there is a minimum quarter-mile time before which you need parachutes to legally be able to use
really?
the
Wow.
drag strips.
Yeah,
And if you go flat out, you will be banned from the drag strip from going too fast without a parachute. That's
So-
pretty hilarious.
real quick before your next thing though,
Yeah.
that is open to somebody doing on a highway right now.
Yes.
That
But
that
that's a highway versus a prepared drag strip straight line.
yeah,
then
but
they'll
but what's the safety measure of that you're reaching the outside of the if you need the parachutes to not go off the track at the end?
Yes.
So that means
And
on the
that's
highway
also-
you need the parachutes to not crash into someone potentially stopped on the highway.
So that's also older. The parachute is an older rule. Like these
yeah.
parachutes came from like cars from the 90s, needed a parachute
Yeah.
to stop, and now we have a Model S with the biggest brakes I've ever seen. But the second part of that is if there's any car that I want to be able to go 0 to 60 really fast, it's the one with the best safety rating, the one with the biggest crumple zone, the one with the newest tech, the one that's least likely to get hurt in, which is
the one
at least
that
good.
but the one that you're inside. That has nothing to do with the
Oh, yeah,
other
yeah.
person.
I'm just
that
saying
you're
best case
potentially getting into
scenario.
the accident.
Best case scenario, if you're saying there's going to be a car that does 0 to 60 in 1.9, which car do you want it to be? I guess I want it to be the safest one. But yes, no matter what happens on the outside, you're at least making the inside variable safer. But yeah,
Okay, so now that Andrew did his did his answer,
Yeah.
do you have a piece of tech that you think is going to
Yeah,
be
I feel
scary
like this
in the
is
future?
pretty far off
Dangerous?
of what
I've got a couple.
He was probably looking for like AI robots.
I've got a
stuff like
couple thoughts, but I want to let you go if you have a.
dangerous. I think generally tech has done a good job of staying safe because number one, you don't want the bad PR. Number two, anytime you get anywhere near unsafe, you have to deal with the FTC or FCC, Federal Trade,
let me
FTC.
be.
So obviously there's been exceptions to that. Samsung had battery problems, as we all remember, but those are exceptions to the rule. So when I look at the most dangerous tech or the tech with the most potential to be dangerous, it kind of has to be sort of like low key behind the scenes dangerous. Like is all of your data being sold? That type of dangerous.
accessibility through like the internet or through like a place that has a common area that somebody can gain access to, I think is what would scare me the most.
Yeah.
Access to all of your data through someone with poor intentions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I have a good like single product or something where it needs this solution that I can propose, but AI is definitely one that's
AI is
gonna
the one
come up
that
a
I
lot.
think AI, there's also, and before David answers, like similar on there, it's just like, I feel like Boston Dynamics is one of those ones where everyone wants to be scared. But to me, that doesn't worry me really.
Yeah,
Not
I
yet.
mean,
Maybe I should. We see all these.
I might be slightly worried about those because
Well-
if someone got a hold of one and put guns on it,
That's the thing. So Boston
I guess.
Dynamics is being very careful at the very beginning, which is who can even get their hands on the robot in the first place. Talking about putting things in the hands of the public.
Yeah.
You cannot buy a Boston Dynamics robot without talking to Boston Dynamics about exactly what you're going to do with it, them approving it, and them having you sign a contract saying, if you do anything else, we're taking it back. So
is it that, or is it just they stop software updates and no more
I'm not sure the
the
specifics.
customer service. I think it was. So
But
like
they
technically you can
definitely-
still run it, but it basically is stopped at that.
But it's
point.
not like your crazy uncle can buy one and send it off to do something crazy for you because he will not be able to get his hands on one.
Yeah.
So that's what Boston Dynamics is doing, which is smart. And I think a lot of companies who make products like that probably think about this type of stuff a lot. We don't want the liability. We don't want any products to be dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. What's the solution other than do good?
Yeah.
Work for a company that make thing, do
It
good.
seems to be the best solution for all of these is be a
Yeah.
good human being, which will
Yeah.
never happen. for a lot
I
of
have
people.
I have two.
Okay.
One of them is kind of cliche, but I think it's like like unregulated social media, and just the way that it is probably screwing with a lot of younger people's heads right now, and just the lasting effects that will have on people's self-image within the next 10 years.
I think there are
Especially
people
when you grow up with it and like your entire worldview is the entire world
Mhm.
and everyone looks perfect all the time. I think there's going to be a pretty major mental health crisis in about 5 to 10 years.
Is this a bad time to plug that you should subscribe to the video podcast on YouTube?
Yeah. So that's a kind of a cliche one, but I
totally
kind of also firmly believe that's going to happen. And the fact that it's just the platforms are driven around engagement and staying on the platform, and because of that have just kind of gone out of control.
I totally agree. And there's attempts at solving it that I don't think are
I don't think
very
they're
well.
working very well at all, because at the end of the day, these companies still need you on their platform for as long
exactly.
as possible. The other thing is CRISPR, which, do you guys know what CRISPR is?
Is that the DNA manipulation?
Yeah,
type stuff?
it's gene
Oh,
editing, basically. They take this cutter protein virus and it goes in, and the way that your genes are laid out is like a sequence, right? So if they can identify certain sequences that cause certain diseases, they can literally cut one of the sequences out and replace it with another one, and then you won't have the disease. And while that's like incredible and amazing, and they've been working on this for a long time, there are very scary implications of this, because while, you know, some people have in the past thought that there was like superior genetic humans that didn't exist, now there actually will be. And it's going to be, I mean, if this got sold, if this like became available on an open market, only the richest people would be able to afford it. And if only the richest people could make the most superior human babies, then the rich would be genetically superior, which would keep them rich, which would keep them genetically superior. And it would just become this like, so it's a whole thing.
And what's the solution to this?
Hit them with your car that goes 0 to 60 in 1.9.
It's a really hard problem, because like if we could eliminate cancer,
It's
we?
exactly.
It's one of those questions.
Oh yeah, it's one of those questions.
There's actually a worldwide ban right now on using it for embryos.
currently. But it's a really interesting topic, but also very scary, because it could easily cause like a ridiculous amount of like classism.
There's a lot of
genetic classism, which is scary as hell.
I
Anyway,
think I read a book about this, but yeah.
potentially, yeah.